This little thing is the iPod Touch 2G. This piece of technology is now over 10 years old, and today we're going to re-review it and see if there's still a place for it in the present day tech world. What's up guys, Michael here back with another tech video. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at a retro piece of technology, so be sure to subscribe if you're into any sort of technology. We got new videos here every single week. So I'm currently filming and making this video in January of 2021, but in order to understand where the iPod Touch 2G has come in its life cycle, we have to go back 11 years to September 9th, 2008, when the iPod Touch 2G was officially announced by Steve Jobs. At the time that the iPod Touch 2G was announced, it was a predecessor to the first generation iPod Touch, and people were pretty excited with a lot of the new features that it comes with. What's going to be really interested in this video is taking a look at what exactly those new features were and what features we have on present day technology. To start, let's talk about the actual specs on this thing. This thing has a Samsung processor in it, so for those of you guys who don't know, Apple actually used to purchase processors from Samsung before they started making their own. Now this iPod Touch 2G has about 533 megahertz on the Samsung processor that's inside it. Just to give you a glimpse of where we are today 11 years later, the iPhone 12 Pro Max has about 3 gigahertz, which is about 6 times faster just in CPU computing power alone. Now, the RAM on the iPod Touch 2G is where things get even more different in terms of where technology has come in the last 11 years. So RAM, for those of you guys who don't know, is random access memory. It allows you to run more applications on a computer or a mobile device. So whether you're using iPhone or Android, it allows you to basically have more applications open at one time. You can quickly jump back into those applications without having to close them out again. The iPod Touch 2G actually doesn't even support multitasking or having multiple applications open at one time. You can only open one app at a time. And that's probably largely because the iPod Touch 2G only has 128 megabytes of RAM in it. That is 46 times less than the iPhone 12 Pro Max, which has 6 gigabytes. So in terms of mobile computing power when it comes to RAM, we are about 46 times more powerful in today's world. Now, one thing I was really surprised at is that you can actually still plug the iPod Touch 2G into a computer running Apple Music nowadays. And you can actually back up the device itself. You can factory restore it, which is what I've actually done on this device here. You can add podcasts to it and audiobooks. The catch is that if you use iCloud to have music on your actual device, you'll have to make sure those songs are downloaded. Obviously, this thing doesn't support iCloud, but it was still kind of cool that I could plug this thing into my Mac computer and I could back it up, I could factory reset it, I could load new stuff on it. Which is kind of cool. The storage is where it also gets a bit different here. So you had 8 gigabytes, 16 gigabytes, and 32 gigabytes. To give you a little perspective in terms of where storage has gone, nowadays the iPhone 12 you can get at 128 gigabytes or all the way up to 512 gigabytes. So definitely a lot more storage available on present day technology. The screen size is also quite a bit different here in terms of what we have in today's world with screen sizes and mobile phones and whatnot. We have a 3.5 inch screen on the iPod Touch 2G at 480p. It has about 163 pixels per inch, and you can definitely tell it's not an HD screen. It doesn't look very well, but at the time it was fantastic. It was a huge leap in technology at the time. But a 3.5 inch screen at 480p in today's world, not something that most technology or mobile technology has. There's also the 30-pin connector here, so you guys probably remember we have had 30-pin and then we went to Lightning recently. USB-C is now on some Apple products, but 30-pin used to be the standard. I'm glad it's gone. I wish they would remove Lightning and just do USB-C, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Now, the one thing that is kind of still standard here is Bluetooth. So Bluetooth is still on the iPod Touch 2G, obviously. It hasn't gone anywhere. But Bluetooth is still obviously on phones and new devices coming out today. It's just slightly better Bluetooth with better range and whatnot. But you're actually still able to connect the iPod Touch 2G to a Bluetooth speaker that you could use with new technology like the iPhone 12. And that was kind of cool to me. I tested this out earlier and there's no issues with it. If you load songs onto the iPod Touch 2G and you connect it to a Bluetooth speaker, you'll be able to play those songs and it'll sound the exact same as if you were playing it from a new piece of technology today. It really just depends on the overall quality and what type of Bluetooth speaker you're using. And guys, before we go any further in this retro tech video, I want to give you guys an opportunity to subscribe and hit the like button. Let me know in the comments down below if you like these type of videos. And as I said earlier, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. We got new tech videos coming out every single week. I really enjoyed making this video. This retro tech stuff I actually really enjoy making. So if you guys like this type of stuff, let me know. Maybe I can try to get my hands on more retro tech. It sounds weird to say something's retro when it's only 11 years old, but in terms of the technology world, that is like a lifetime. So here's a closer look at the actual iPod Touch 2G itself. I've actually factory reset this thing and I believe it's running iOS. Actually, let's go check. So this thing is running iPhone OS. I believe it actually wasn't even called iOS at the time. It's running iPhone OS 4.2.1. And you can see I got a 16 gigabyte version here because of the operating system on top of it. I only have 14.2 gigs available. Really just an interesting thing to see here. What I want to do is take kind of a look around the actual device itself. So you can see mine is incredibly scratched up. It actually has almost like an X mark here from a iPod Touch stand I used to use from previous videos I did. At the top here, this is actually a Wi-Fi antenna. So at the time they had to have some sort of Wi-Fi on the back of the kind of the chrome shiny back here. It's kind of hard to see with all the scratches, but you can see it does have the capacity gigabyte I got there. And if you look at the bottom here, you can see that 30-pin connector, which I have sitting right over here to actually charge and sync the device with iTunes at the time or Apple Music today. We actually have something that's no longer on most phones nowadays, and that's a 3.5mm headphone jack. Nothing on the side here. And flipping it over to the other side, we see a volume control button. So this was actually a new feature that was offered at the time. The iPod Touch first generation did not have a volume control button to turn up and down your music. And you can see here when we press those buttons, it displays the actual volume on the side. And it's actually kind of hard to hit the buttons here. But that was a big feature that people asked for at the time that Apple put on it. The other thing that's different here is we have the actual power button on the right side of the device, as opposed to most power buttons nowadays are either on the side or on the right instead of the left. Now, the other thing that's kind of interesting to look at here is the different icons and the logos that they have that came pre-installed on iOS or iPhone OS 4.2.1. The first one we have up here is Game Center. That's actually not even an option anymore on the iPhone today, at least not the app. You can see here the calendar icon hasn't changed much. The photos is definitely different. The contacts is different. YouTube used to come pre-installed. Looks like it just kind of had the TV looking little thing there. But this is what you got on iOS 4.2.1. This was your pre-installed apps. This is everything that you got. We don't have multitasking here. So if we double click the home button, there is no multitasking. It just brings us to a search option. So I believe we could search like YouTube, and then YouTube would come up. If we take a look in the settings here, we can see we do obviously have Wi-Fi on this device. You can change the brightness. You could change the wallpaper, which used to be a thing. You actually can't change the wallpaper behind the actual apps itself. This is only the wallpaper on the front of the screen. So if we set a new wallpaper here and we lock the device, we can see we have that new wallpaper. But there was no option to change the back of the wallpaper unless you actually jailbroke the iPod Touch. So just to give you guys a sense of where we've come today, here I have the iPhone 12 Pro Max with the 6.7-inch screen. And this is the iPod Touch 2G with that 3.5-inch screen. We've definitely come a long way, much bigger phones. There's cameras, multiple cameras on the back of our devices now. There's no Wi-Fi antenna. It's just really interesting to see how far we've come in just 11 years. Now, one thing that's actually different in a good way is the pricing structure for the iPod Touch in terms of 2008 and 2021. When the iPod Touch 2G was originally released, it was $230 all the way up to $400, depending on what capacity you got for storage and whatnot. And if we look at something like an inflation calculator, since 2008, we've had about a 21% inflation in the United States. So that means that the iPod Touch starting out should probably cost $278 in today's dollars. So we're actually lower than that today with the current iPod Touch only costing $200 to get. That's something that's kind of cool that I wanted to mention. Just kind of interesting to see the pricing structures change as technology gets more and less expensive depending on what you're talking about. The last thing I quickly want to mention here before we wrap up this video is just a news article I saw in 2009. So back in 2009, the most popular phone at the time was obviously the iPhone. It was a huge leap in technology and everyone pretty much wanted it. But the second most popular phone at the time, and a phone I actually remember the more wealthier kids having, is the LG Envy, or LG Envy. It was basically kind of like a flip out phone with a keyboard, I believe, on it. I'll throw a picture up over what I'm talking right now, but it just comes to show you how quickly we've advanced in terms of technology. And finally here, what I do want to mention is what we talked about in the beginning of the video, and that's what's the iPod Touch 2G good for in 2021? What is an 11-year-old piece of technology still useful for in today's age? Oddly enough, the same reason people probably would have bought the iPod Touch 2G back in 2008 is largely while it's still useful in 2021 here. Because you can still load songs on it, audiobooks, you can load podcasts on it, you can even get movies on this thing if you want to watch movies on a 3.5-inch screen at 480p. You can do it if you want. But because you can still do all those things, you can still listen to music through a Bluetooth speaker. You can plug in a 3.5mm headphone jack and listen to a podcast if you want. You could even technically connect a piece of Bluetooth headphones to this because it still offers Bluetooth. But if you're looking for a device specifically to play podcasts or just music on in general, the iPod Touch 2G works really well. So if you have an opportunity to get your hands on one for maybe a really cheap price, or if you have one laying in your drawer somewhere and you need some sort of device to basically play music on or podcasts, the iPod Touch 2G still works, and it works great. With all that being said though, guys, I'm going to wrap up this video. Again, I've really enjoyed making this video, so let me know in the comments down below if you want more retro tech videos. And while you're down there, let me know if you have an iPod Touch 2G, or what maybe the first Apple or MP3 player that you bought was. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Have a great rest of your day.